Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Monday, March 14th, 2022, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Today we're going to be looking at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide section on alignment. Again, part 2. We started doing this last week. It was a interesting show. Alignment always has a D&D itself, I think, has a love-hate relationship with its own alignment system in that it likes to build things around it, detect good, detect evil, protection from, so on and so forth. But at the same time, there's a sort of nebulous quality about it that beckons DMs to create their own way of interpreting it and implementing it within their games, if at all. Some people just wholesale abandon it theoretically, although it creeps in because it's somewhat hardwired in, right? It's baked in to certain aspects, such as the spells just mentioned. So people can be all over the place when it comes to alignment. We discussed the various alignments and their individuality, which is an interesting word to use, I suppose, when you're talking about 9 things, each of which covers a whole spectrum of aspects and play styles. Anyway, let's dive back in. We left after discussing the planes, alignment with respect to the planes. We're getting into graphing alignment here, and we'll just read for starters. It is of importance to keep track of player character behavior with respect to their professed alignment. Actions do speak far more eloquently than professions, and each activity of a player character should reflect his or her alignment. If a professed lawful evil character is consistently seeking to be helpful and is respecting the lesser creatures, he or she is certainly tending towards good. Well, if he or she ignores regulations and consistent behavior, the trend is towards chaotic alignment. They say to see the Player's Handbook Appendix 3 character alignment graph, but we all know it. It's the chart with the diametrically opposed alignments on opposite sides of the graph and then neutral in the middle and seeking to find some area where you poke yourself. Am I up here in the lawful good-ish quadrant? Am I closer to neutral? Am I so on and so forth? Such drift should be noted by you, and when it takes the individual into a new alignment area, you should then inform the player that his or her character has changed alignment. It is quite possible for a character to drift around in an alignment area, making only small shifts due to behavior. However, any major action which is out of alignment character will cause a major shift to the alignment which is directly in line with the action, i.e., if a lawful evil character defies the law in order to aid the cause, expressed or implied, of chaotic good, he or she will be either lawful neutral or chaotic neutral, depending on the factors involved in the action. Let me just say that this is one of those sections where a lot of the multi-meaning words can cause some awkwardness in sentence structure here. which is out of alignment character. Why would you use the word character there when character has a different meaning in another section, a lawful evil character? You know, we know that words have two meanings, but why not just use a synonym and make the flow of the a little editing, a little more editing would have helped in this section of the you know, it's like the whole multi-use of level, but level of a dungeon, level of a character, monster level, so on and so forth, spell level. So many ways that the word level gets used. It might have been interesting if they had found a couple of let's move me over there. A couple of I don't know, break open a thesaurus, right? In any event, in regard to alignment, this bookkeeping is a lot of work. If you analyze even minor shifts, if you analyze someone and put them in that alignment straitjacket, as some people call it, uh, you're going to have people not role playing so much. Now, or sticking so hard to a script that they don't garner as much fun out of playing the game. Uh, some people would say, hey, you know, I want that guidance. I want to know that if I'm playing a paladin, I'm going to be that staunch, lawful good, always Dudley Do writing my way around the, too old a reference, around a campaign. But sometimes you got to say, in my case, I say that alignment tracks what people do, not the other way around. Nor does it necessarily need to be a badge you wear on your chest or on your sleeve that says, "Hey everybody, I'm this." Now, this next section we're going to get into on alignment language, you can see that coming up at the bottom of the page there, is going to be one of those reasons why you need to do it. But if you don't use alignment languages, that takes a lot of the onus off having to be rigidly adhering to alignment. You'll see why. I'll continue. It is of utmost importance to keep rigid control of alignment behavior with respect to such characters as serve deities. Boy, that'd probably be a really bad gif. With respect to such characters as serve deities who will accept only certain alignments, those who are paladins, those with evil familiars, and so on. Part of the role they have accepted requires a set behavior mode, and its benefits are balanced by this. Therefore, failure to demand strict adherence to alignment behavior is to allow a game abuse. Okay, simmer down now. That's very true. If you require alignment to be part of the game, and if alignment languages are something you get from being part of alignment, we'll continue. Lawful good characters should not be allowed to ignore unlawful or shady actions by looking the other way. If, for example, a party that includes a paladin decides to use poison on a monster that they know is ahead, the DM shouldn't let the paladin be distracted or led away for a few rounds when it is patently obvious that the paladin heard the plan. If the player does not take appropriate measures to prevent the action, the DM should warn the paladin that his lack of action will constitute a voluntary alignment change, and then let the chips fall where they may! Exclamation point. Well, Paladin is probably one of the few classes where that is absolutely something that needs to be kept a lid on. But the player chooses it for the benefits, chooses to play a paladin for the benefits of being the paladin, whether that's some of those healing benefits or as they get higher in level, then some spell casting ability and that sort of thing. So if you're going to use that class in your game and you are going to have those restrictions, then a player knows going in, and that's the case. Now, is it fair to say that somebody who chooses to be a neutral good rogue, thief, hmm, or any other character class and begins playing it that way and plays modestly, at least generally in a manner that is neutral good, and then strays from that, what do they lose? Are they stripped of their ability to thieve? Are they stripped of their other abilities, whatever they are, depending on their class, because they've shifted alignment? Well, no, that's not structured into the class. So one has to wonder, is there an alternative, or should perhaps, if you're not using alignment so strictly, the paladin be singled out? Should it be the one character class that has that restriction that needs to be adhered to religiously? Yeah, that's the way I do it. If someone wants to play a paladin, they have to play it lawful good, and that's the only time I clamp down on alignment type behavior. For my own part, I'm not that strict with it. I use it to tell me how a character is behaving in respect to the 24/7 that we're not seeing on the screen, if you will. When I play a game, when I run a session, when people play their character, we're playing for a few hours of game time, and depending on the pacing of it, depending on where they're going and what they're doing, it may be 10 hours in the game. It may be several weeks within the game. And I have to have some idea if, let's say, they're going on a long sea voyage, but we're kind of hand waving it to get them from point A to point B in 15 minutes. I want to know how the crew that they're on the sea voyage with will interact with them. And my one guidance on that is whatever behavior uh, they displayed in the time in which we were playing in a kind of 1-to-1 scale where each minute was an actual minute, where they were sitting around having a conversation with one another or interacting with other NPCs at the table in their own voice as it is perceived by them to be the character's voice. So the way in which they were acting then is what I use to kind of broadly understand how they would be acting when they're not specifically and directly doing so. So if someone's acting chaotic neutral at the table when they're playing the character, my assumption is that's the way they are when they're not directly at the table acting for the character. When we shift ahead 2 weeks, they were acting chaotic neutrally the entire time they were on the boat. Now, I'm not saying they have to have that on their sheet. What I am saying is, if they act a certain way, that's what I believe their alignment to be behind the screen for me as I keep track of it mentally or physically. And that's the way NPCs will react to them once they've had a short conversation or even a long conversation with them, because that's how it's going to be. Anyway, we'll move on. We're going to check out alignment language. This is not something that I utilize in my own games because I find it to be a little. Oh, Skull and Pants. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for coming out. I don't use alignment languages in my own games. They feel like a kind of forced conceit. I know they made sense in original Dungeons and Dragons when it was just law and chaos, more so than they did later on. To just have two overarching alignment languages was one thing. To have 9 separate languages and then thieves can't on top of that or whatever. Let me read what it says and then we'll talk about it a bit. Alignment language is a handy game tool which is not unjustified in real terms. Here's where we stretch a bit. here's where we round peg square hole or square peg round hole. Thieves did employ a special cant. Secret organizations and societies did and do have certain recognition signs, signals, and recognition phrases, possibly special languages of limited extent as well. Consider also the medieval Catholic Church, which used Latin as a common recognition and communication base to cut across national boundaries. In AD&D, alignment languages are the special set of signs, signals, gestures, and words which intelligent creatures use to inform other intelligent creatures of the same alignment, of their fellowship, and common ethos. Alignment languages are never flaunted in public. They are not used as salutations or interrogatives of the speaker if the speaker is uncertain of the alignment of those addressed. Furthermore, alignment languages are of limited vocabulary and deal with the ethos of the alignment in general, so lengthy discussions of varying subjects cannot be conducted in such tongues. Excuse me. Each alignment language is constructed to allow recognition of like-aligned creatures and to discuss the precepts of the alignment in detail. Otherwise, the tongue will permit only the most rudimentary communication with a vocabulary limited to a few score words. The speaker could inquire of the listener's state of health, ask about hunger, thirst, or degree of tiredness. A few other basic conditions and opinions could be expressed, but no more. The specialty tongues of Druidic, and the Thieves' Cant are designed to handle conversations pertaining to things druidical on the one hand, and thievery, robbery, and the disposal of stolen goods on the other. Druids could discuss at length and in detail the state of the crops, weather, animal husbandry, and foresting, but warfare, politics, adventuring, and like matter would be impossible to detail with the language. Any character foolish enough to announce his or her alignment by publicly crying out in that alignment tongue will incur considerable social sanctions. At best, he or she will be thought unmannerly, rude, boorish, and stupid. Those of the same alignment will be inclined to totally ignore the character, not wishing to embarrass themselves by admitting any familiarity with the offender. Those of other alignment will likewise regard the speaker with distaste when overhearing such an outburst. At worst, the character will be marked by those hostile to the alignment in which he or she spoke. So we're already talking about limitations on the use of it, but still the possibility that it could be used. Hello. Ivellen. Ivellen says, I feel alignment languages was a good idea that was poorly implemented. Yeah, that's definitely the case here with everything we've been reading thus far. It's been a while since I've read this section. I think as everybody who knows the show knows that I stream this show live unedited. I don't edit it after the fact. I often do it on the extemporaneously. So even though I've read the DMG in its entirety over the years a number of times and in pieces, when I come to a section like this, I want to get a fresh take on it from myself as much. So I don't even reread the section prior to diving in, but I give my impressions of things and how I play them in my own games as I relive the experience of reading any given section. And because alignment in particular is something that I use very differently than is suggested by the books, um, a lot of this falls on deaf ears with me when it comes to larger discussions, more broad discussions about alignment tongues and alignment in general. But in the case of alignment languages in particular, I definitely express that they are not well handled, in my opinion, not well implemented, as you say. And I appreciate you jumping in and making the comment. Um, Let me just continue then, and there's really not a lot more. Alignment language is used to establish credentials only after initial communications have been established by other means. Only in the most desperate of situations would any creature utter something in the alignment tongue otherwise. It must also be noted that alignment does not necessarily empower a creature to actually speak or understand the alignment language, which is general in the ethos. Thus, blink dogs are intelligent, lawful good creatures who have a language of their own. A lawful good human, dwarf, or brownie will be absolutely at a loss to communicate with blink dogs, however, except in the most limited of ways, non-aggression, non-fear, etc., without knowledge of the creature's language or some other magical means. This is because blink dogs do not intelligently embrace the ethos of lawful good, but are of that alignment instinctually. Therefore, they do not speak the tongue used by lawful good. This is not true of gold dragons, let us say, or red dragons with respect to their alignment, who do speak their respective alignment languages. So this is to say for them that because they are not mere animals, dragons that is, that because they come by their alignments through introspection and intelligent choice, that they can then also pick up alignment languages. That in of itself is a bit awkward because learning a language is not something you can do just kind of off the cuff. Do they have books? Did they have a tutor? Where did alignment languages start? I think it best to say that alignment languages are not per se whole languages. Like they say here, it's a few score words, but even a few score words are extra words. Um, Maybe better if you want to implement a kind of alignment language system would be to say that there are a number of words that are used by those of certain regions of the world to tip off certain phrases they regularly use, idioms perhaps that are used within uh, those alignments or by folks of certain alignments to, as a sort of, what's the word, shibboleth, a way of, a password, if you will, of connecting with someone else of a similar alignment that wouldn't necessarily give their alignment away to people that are non-speakers of that alignment language. Um, Ivelin continues by saying in the chat, I think it was supposed to represent more like faction languages. The lawful being an actual faction people join. I think Gygax compared it to Latin being used in a church. Yep, absolutely. Right at the beginning of this section, he was pointing that out as a real world example in the vein of, not a direct one to one comparison per se, but definitely something he was saying in the vein of, just as just as he would probably agree that Cockney rhyming slang is in the vein of what is thieves can't within the world of within the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons. So my contention is that having it switched to being a number of recognized phrases and then getting on with the interaction between those of similar or same alignment after they've sussed each other out makes a little more sense if you're not using alignment languages. The idea of a common tongue itself is something that could do another whole show on as being its own thing, although uh, lingua franca, I guess, the idea that there were periods where certain languages flew beyond their own borders. Alexander the Great, of course, spreading Greek as a language of um, also Latin. I think the example of the Catholic Church as a kind of a quasi alignment language is uh, kind of a poor example because it is an inherited language uh, from from the Romans, in essence, and of course, many of the languages that exist are similar because they're offshoots of. Let's not get too far in the weeds on languages as a whole, though, because we want to finish this alignment section. Um, of course, we're hitting our time, so we're going to do a part 3 2 weeks from today and jump in on changing alignment. I think that warrants a pretty wide discussion anyway. So we will do that. Next week, though, we're going to be talking about GaryCon because GaryCon begins on the 24th, and there'll be people coming into town early and staying in town a little longer, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I want to discuss it a bit. So we'll take a week off from alignment, come back with part 3 in 2 weeks. This next week, we will talk GaryCon. I want to thank everybody for sure for coming out today and joining us in the chat, and those that are watching this later. Let's remind everybody that this was the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide section on alignment, part 2 of that examination. We'll get back to that in a couple of weeks. Let me make sure I get the dates right. It should be the 28th. It'll be the day after GaryCon ends. On the 21st, we'll talk GaryCon. I think that's the way to go. Oh, we're not experiencing difficulty. We are, on the other hand, saying that the OK Grognard show streams live on Twitch at 10 a.m. each Monday and is then archived on YouTube. If you can join us on a Monday in the Twitch stream, then please do, and follow the channel and chime in on the chat while you're here. We love having people join us there. If you're catching up with it on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and click the little bell to make sure you get updates when new shows are uploaded. Please do give a thumbs up. Feel free to make comments on any YouTube video that you watch and enjoy. It's very much appreciated. And thanks to our Patreon supporters. Links will be provided in the show notes on YouTube and on Twitch. Tom Tullis of Fat Dragon Games, Rick Hershey of Fat Goblin Games, Carlos Lysing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Farndon of the D&D 20, Dave O'Brien of Quacks Games, and of course Shane Bradley, DM Extraordinaire. Very much appreciated from all of you. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye bye.